I'm James Swanwick. This is the Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast, where you learn to live a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Do you wonder if you qualify to change your relationship with alcohol? Do you hear about those rock bottoms and say, well, I haven't really had one of those yet, so maybe I can keep doing what I'm doing? Except that inner voice is telling you, you could do better. Do you identify as a social drinker, but something is nagging at you? You're operating at, say, a 6 or a 7 out of 10, and that just doesn't suit your personality. If that's the case, keep listening because you're really going to enjoy this interview today. I'm Victoria English, and I'm the head coach at Alcohol Free Lifestyle. I had the pleasure of working with our guest today during his journey through Project 90. Steve MacLellan is a husband and a father of 3. He was lucky enough to travel and work across the USA, Western and Northern Canada, and spent some time in Denmark and Russia before settling down in his beloved province of Nova Scotia, Canada. He identifies as a recovering engineer who now owns his own independent, value-based financial firm called Design Your Future. He helps consultants and coaches make more money and pay less tax so they can truly focus on what's important in life. Steve had so many takeaways from his time at Project 90 that he has written a book based on some of his experiences. His book is available now on Amazon. It's called Grow, Control, and Keep Your Money. It has a bright orange cover, and I am getting my copy today. So keep listening because stopping drinking is just the first part of this lifestyle. That's why our company is called Alcohol Free Lifestyle. Some main points we're going to cover today will be the socially acceptable drinker and why you don't have to be a stereotype alcoholic to do this program. Steve is going to talk about true self-confidence and how it comes from knowing thyself. Steve says that this is the best Know Thyself program that he's ever taken. And finally, hate to burst your bubble, listeners, but life is not all sunshine and rainbows when you live an alcohol-free lifestyle, but it is definitely better. We're going to cover those things and more today. Thank you, Steve, for being here. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, and I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So Steve is approaching 1 year alcohol free. And before we hit record, I said, wow, when we feel so good at 90 days, but when you get to about a year, it really is astounding to look back and see the changes. And just a reminder, Steve's not coming from some rock bottom. So I'm excited to hear about your experiences. Let's start with the socially acceptable drinker. Tell me about that.
Like so many out there, alcohol is everywhere. And, I definitely had a love relationship with alcohol. I grew up in a great little town called Antigonish, Nova Scotia. It's often referred to as the Little Vatican, very Scottish and Irish culture. So, definitely alcohol plays a place in our life there. But as a young man, I was quite studious and very involved in my athletics. And you probably count on one hand how many times I drank before the age of 19. That's the legal age in Nova Scotia to be able to drink. But I do remember at the age of 19 going to the local pub, Piper's Pub, in my small little town and being blown away by what was happening and loving it. Just and the university bar. And I probably from 19 to the age of 29, I did not miss a Saturday or a weekend out and partied hard wherever I was at. Lucky enough to travel the world, but generally always looking for a good time. But that's what I thought everyone else was doing at the same time. I usually compared myself to my peers and said, hey, I'm not drinking as much as so-and-so. But over time, I did start to realize there were certain things happening that I noticed that maybe it's time to take a second look at this alcohol.
That's an important point. Often, when people feel that nagging voice saying, "Hey, maybe your drinking is off," the first thing we'll do is look at others and compare ourselves. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because we wouldn't do that if we were gaining weight. If we had gained 15 pounds and we didn't feel so great, our clothes weren't fitting as well, we wouldn't say, well, that person has gained 50 pounds. I don't need to do anything about myself. Alcohol is so unique in that way.
It is very unique, and like I said, I defended it when my now wife and I were first start to date. I did notice my alcohol intake went down a lot, but we would have arguments over it. And I thought that was just a spouse's job, was to nag about alcohol intake, right? But I remember defending it and saying to my wife, look, there's studies that when people drink beer, they're surrounded by friends. And when they're surrounded by friends, they're usually laughing. Therefore, beer is good for you.
Love that logic. Interesting.
Well, that's the engineer in me, right?
I was about to say, I've worked with several, and that is some engineer brain right there.
So I was always, always kind of celebrating alcohol and always thinking that it was a thing that was needed in my life. If someone was to come over, the first thing I would do is offer them a drink, because that's what I saw growing up. And that's the way, well, I guess you mimic what you see.
Absolutely. On other podcasts, I've talked about what it is to be a normal drinker. And even the quote normal intake is quite high. And so, of course, as more and more research comes out, we're linking it to potential health consequences, mental health issues, obviously sleep, just general overall well-being. And so you are not alone in looking around and comparing yourself to what is considered normal. But this is a good opportunity for our listeners to take a step back and say, well, it's still a lot. And what's normal? Do I want to be average? Do I want to be average in any area? So thank you for that. So what was when did the change happen where you stopped defending alcohol and took that good hard look at things?
That's a great question. And I would say it was a series of things. It wasn't just one thing, but a series of things. And as I mentioned, when I met my wife, I was Twitter pated with her right away. Her not so much. So I knew I had to level up my game a little bit, but we eventually did start dating. She helped me take my career and life more serious. And then when we had our son, that was where, okay, I need to start doing better. And I did. And probably drank a lot less, but more so focused on my career. And that got me a reputation. I was building a good reputation in Calgary, Alberta. That got me a job to come to Nova Scotia. And long story short, that move was career suicide. My career came to a screaming halt. And then I went into the financial industry very naively. And I will tell you this, when I did go into the financial industry, I noticed just having one beer would affect my motivation the next day.
Just one beer.
So in Calgary, we were in the habit of having a couple of beers at lunchtime and after work, and then partying with friends on the weekend. In the East Coast, a little bit different. They kind of saved the drinking for the weekend. They still have a couple here and there, but most of it is for the weekend. And when I went into the financial industry, my wife and I tried to not have that drink until Friday. And I remember craving, can't wait for Friday to come so I could have that IPA, usually one or two, but sometimes it was 3 or 4. And then a couple on the weekend, mowing the lawn or whatnot, or having sociables and seeing friends. And that just seemed to grow and become a habit. And then when COVID happened, that habit seemed to happen a little bit more. And I would said, well, I deserve this. It's not bad, defended alcohol. Never really got intoxicated too often in front of people, but maybe slurring the words. My wife would be getting after me. But again, that's what I thought wives did. And wouldn't let loose except for a couple of special events. And one event I did let loose. I was the president of the local business chapter around here. Let loose. There was some fire whiskey being passed around. And make a long story short, I got intoxicated in front of business owners. And the next day, I just remember waking up with such anxiety, a hangover. My wife was disappointed, couldn't do anything the next day, and said, okay, maybe it's time to take a look at this. You mentioned before, I'm a 7 out of 10 on a lot of these categories. What do I need to do to become better? And that's when I start doing, like an engineer would, start doing a lot of research on alcohol. And that's how I came across the podcast, The Alcohol-Free Lifestyle.
Did you ever imagine you'd be here with me?
No. It's we're trained to love alcohol and almost worship it. It's a very big piece of society. And I'll tell you what, I like an engineer, like a lot of engineers do. I tried to do this on myself at first, and I was shocked on how hard it was. I remember 2 weeks in, just craving my IPA. It was one of those Friday nights and just craving it. And this is the first time I really took something really serious, a program. And I ended up having to have almost 8 carbonated waters just to compensate for that one IPA.
Any self-respecting alcohol-free individual has many, many, many varieties of sparkling water. I think that's interesting to note. So when people think about someone who is changing their relationship with alcohol, they may assume that they are someone who is hooked, and so often I'll have discovery calls and people will preface the conversation saying, well, it's not like I drink every day. It's not like I wake up and do vodka shooters. It's not like, and they're trying to qualify why they are on this call, and the question I have is alcohol making your life better? Collectively, I'm not talking about the first 30 minutes of the high from the drug. Collectively, is it making your life better? And they'll say no. And then I'll respond with, it's great that you're on this call with me. And so what I'm hearing, Steve, is that you were definitely not physically dependent on this. And it was more of that Pavlovian response. If Friday, then IPA. And when that didn't happen, when that bell didn't ring, you became frustrated, anxious. You were missing it. You were trying to fill it with something. And that is hard.
Yeah, I found it extremely hard. And that's, I listened to the podcasts, I read a couple of books, tried to do everything myself. And then the new year came and I said, I want to be alcohol free in 2023 so I can do more in 2024. But this is something I really, really want to do. And I know from the power of association, if you wanted to get something done, you got to surround yourself with people that are already successful. And that's why I signed up for the 90-day challenge.
That's wonderful. We work with high performers, and when you put it that simply, it becomes an easy decision. If you want to level up, surround yourself with people who are doing it.
Hi, I'm James Swanwick. Have you downloaded my free Alcohol Freedom Formula yet? If not, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. You can download it. It will outline the same process that we walk our clients through in our flagship 90-day Stop Drinking program. You'll also get an email from me each day with tips and tricks to reduce or stop drinking, to improve your health, nutrition, mobility, and lots of other great mindset techniques. That's alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide.
I don't think I don't think I would have been able to do it for a year because, look, it's not just a straight line up. There's ups and downs as you're going up.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned self-confidence and how that comes from knowing thyself. What's that look like since you have stopped drinking?
It's another great question. And I think, one of the reasons why I kind of loved alcohol at first, it gave you that false confidence, that liquid courage to go up to talk to that girl or to do things that you normally wouldn't have done. Knowing what I know now, that wasn't courage. That was lack of inhibition, really.
Yes.
Right. When you know in the business world, I've spent a ton of time, a ton of money on self-development, on knowing thyself and all these. They're good exercises. But when I gave up alcohol, or when I stopped drinking alcohol, when I started living an alcohol-free lifestyle, it actually gave me time to think about what I actually want. Who do I want to be surrounded with? What kind of role models do I want to be setting for my children? There was a podcast that, brought tears to my eye from Jim Miller, where he talked about our daughters often marry the fathers that they have. I think you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah. And I was like, my father-in-law is a great guy, but he was definitely loved his booze. And I was like, no, I got to be better than that. And in that process, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about your strengths, your true strengths. You learn about your weaknesses. And you also realize you've been hoodwinked by this alcohol marketing campaign. And I'll tell you what, that really bothered me at first. I was very upset because here I am, an engineer, thinking I'm so smart. And I marched to my own drum, only to find out, no, I've been following the herd the whole time.
Steve, I remember that. I remember that when you were going through the program. It resonated because I went through the same thing. That was one of the catalysts for getting onto the path I'm on today and becoming a coach. Was I felt hoodwinked. I just thought, are you serious? I fell for this. We all like to think we're critical. We have critical thinking skills and are independent, and bam, here we are. So you have clearly channeled that into a real commitment to maintaining this alcohol-free lifestyle, and, as we'll talk about in a moment, leveraging it as you help others in your industry. So that's quite fascinating. You mentioned that you have spent lots and lots of time in personal development and leveling up, and how it changed when you became alcohol-free. And you gave us the compliment of saying this is the best Know Thyself program you've ever taken. Can you share a bit about that? That's wonderful. Thank you, by the way.
You're very welcome. Well, you are surrounded by phenomenal coaches such as yourself. Love the round table with James and Sarah, and all the coaches, just top notch. And you get to see that you're not the only one going through this process. And what's nice is you got the circle of life, the exercise that you went through a couple of times. It's that clear thinking, that fogging, that fog that kind of lifts over time. And the fact that you're there to hold our hands. One of the things I noticed is, I lost weight right away starting, but then I gained it. I was 214, went down, and then went back up to 221. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? But I was replacing the alcohol with sweets, chocolates, and cookies.
Oh,
And
yes.
I used to have a job interview. Well, anyways, cookies are one of my major weaknesses. But I learned through you guys that was just dopamine. I was searching for a dopamine hit. And instead of going to having a beer or a nice rum, I would hit the cookie jar
Mm-hmm.
and put on weight. I wouldn't have figured that out. I wouldn't have known that myself if I didn't get that help from this program. So it's just that continuous journey of self-reflection, taking time to breathe in the stuff that you want and breathe out the stuff that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And being surrounded with like-minded people that want to do even better. So that's what I mean about this being one of the best know thyself programs, because what I've noticed with knowing thyself, you get that true confidence, not the pretend confidence and the, oh, I'm so great and everyone likes me and looking in the mirror doing the affirmations, but true confidence.
Yes.
Same time, you're going to shake your heads and remember things that you did, and you're going to be your Grinch, but you get over that. It does pass.
It does pass because we return to our authentic selves. And what I find personally, and then of course, after coaching hundreds of people through this program, is that there's that homecoming to ourselves is almost sacred, because we recognize that we did stray from our true self. And when we come home, it is something that we never ever want to lose again.
Amen. You couldn't say it better. I remember being a young man. I was a good fella. I was studious. I cared about others, took sports very seriously. And I veered away from that. Instead of I was always looking for the fun, easy time versus being that self, the authentic self, and actually caring about others.
Yes. Yes. That's a big part of it. Addressing the cookie situation, that is very common. And I kind of refer to that as a harm reduction, right? And to trust the process. You will not always be stuffing your face with cookies. You're not drinking, you're not creating any sort of mess. If you're having some cookies, be patient, it will pass, and we'll address that down the road, right? This is a process, and it does take some commitment. And so for our listeners, if you are snacking more on sugar, it will pass. You will have the tools to address that. Speak for a moment, just for a moment, about the round table, because as a lifelong learner in your professional life and someone interested in personal development, you've certainly been in masterminds where people may or may not be drinkers. What's the difference when you come into a group of like-minded individuals being led by James and everyone there is alcohol-free? What's that experience like?
The conversations are much more honest and much more direct. If people feel like your idea is not the greatest idea, they're going to tell you how to make it better versus patting you on the back and saying good job. So I found much more direct, much more honest, and you've already shared these experiences that you've gone through. So people are already open, and it's much more of a warm and trustworthy place than the other places I've done the business masterminds at.
Well said. Yes, the ego is left at day one. And of course, as you learned in our program, the prefrontal cortex has a chance to start running on all cylinders again. And so the critical thinking and the problem solving skills definitely are increased. And I would imagine that's got to feel really good.
It does. I've become proud of myself again, which is, I couldn't have said that for a long time.
Yeah. That is priceless. That is priceless.
And you know what? Something else pretty powerful is my wife. She mentioned she's proud of me there too. And
Mm.
my wife, fantastic person, but she doesn't fly. She doesn't give the compliments easy. They don't come easy peasy. But she has mentioned that a couple of times. So
Mm. Well, I would imagine when they come, they are authentic.
100%.
Yes, yes. I found, again, personally and professionally, that the external validation is nice, but it's not as needed because we are finding internal validation because we know that we're living the way that we should. And someone like your wife sounds like a very real person, and so she's not going to yes you to death. We don't we
No,
don't need
no,
those people in our lives.
no.
But that must feel so good when
It
she says
feels great. And going back to what you said there, you know what? Having that true confidence, it's done wonders for my business. People
Mhm,
can tell, there's something different about you, different
mhm.
about your aura. But knowing that everything's going to be okay, such a weight off your shoulders, and just knowing that you can really do. I don't want to sound cliche, do anything, but you really can do whatever you put your mind to,
Mhm.
and that's pretty cool when you think about it.
Oh, for sure. The cognitive dissonance that our members are experiencing before they come into the program, because on one hand, they're a high achiever, they're driven, they're problem solvers. And then on the other hand, they can't get this alcohol thing out of the way. So all of that mental energy, that wasted mental energy, has resolved itself. And if you can truly gain power over your relationship with alcohol, there aren't a lot of things that feel scary.
No, ma'am. No.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'd like to speak a bit about your wife. She sounds wonderful. And that was one of your major points, that life isn't all sunshine and rainbows, but life is definitely better. And so I'd like to talk a bit about that, and also highlight the what you mentioned about women marry. What did you say? Women marry.
Your daughter marries the same man that their father is.
Yes, I think I've never heard it put that way. And so my father, when I was growing up, my father had a drinking problem, and thankfully he resolved it when I was about 14. It did impact some of my choices in relationships. And so I would imagine, as a woman, hearing this and hearing just a bit about your wife's past, I've got to imagine this is healing for her as well.
I would assume so.
Yes, we can't speak
Yeah,
for her.
I can't speak for her, but our relationship it's definitely stronger. I didn't realize, you had the two paths of your life
Yes.
that you can take. And I didn't realize that I was heading towards the wrong path
Mm-hmm.
until I had that clear mind and got back
Yeah.
and onto the path that I want to go on, not
Yes.
the path that everybody else is going on, but
That the easy path,
yeah,
right?
my own path.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I would say that our relationship was a 6 or a 7.
Mm-hmm.
We were so busy being busy, taking care of kids, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I was obtuse to it. And
Obtuse is a good word.
yeah, and I
Mm-hmm.
think by having that clear mind, I was able
Mm-hmm.
to make some changes. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not like it's all glitter and glam, but it's definitely better. Our communication is better because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
better listener. I
Yes.
still lose my temper, but I then think about, okay, why did I lose my temper? And I realize it's not about her most of the time. It's about the way I'm feeling.
Yes.
and I'm able to take that back. And our relationship, I would say, would be an 8 right now versus a
Fantastic.
6, right?
What a breakthrough to and when we stop drinking, we are still painfully human. And we will say and do things that we could have phrased that a bit better. But because we didn't say it while we're drinking. And so we can simply say, that was me being human. I've thought about it and I'm sorry. And there's a trust that can be built when that's the case. And so when I talk about how I would imagine it's healing for her, I don't know. I feel things in my body. And when I think about that dynamic, it feels safe. Safe. There's room for error, but there's not gasoline being poured on anything.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right? Right. It's just two humans being human together and moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, I'm happy where things are going. They're definitely going in the right direction again.
That's wonderful. Well, that is a testament to your character. You know, anybody can fall into this pattern of maladaptive drinking, and as Steve described, it's a big spectrum. But true character is evident when you can take a look at it and say, this isn't who I really am, and I don't like this trajectory. I'm going to shift. So, good man, Steve. Good man. Well done.
Thank you very much.
So you've been busy since we last chatted, and I would like to spend a few moments just talking about this book and your online course. You've had so much focus and energy that, like all of our graduates, you've channeled it into something. Tell us about it.
With the extra energy and time and focus, I was able to spend my mornings. I've always wanted to write a book. I've been lucky enough to travel the world, seen some cool things. Felt like I learned a lot about money along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then spent 8 years in the financial industry where I started off very naively, but now kind of do a independent value-based firm, and clients are getting good results. I've studied a ton. I learned what works and what doesn't. And now I had the time to write it in a book where people can read it instead of me just, one of the things is I can't help everyone, but maybe the book can help someone pick up what actually works versus the marketing that's out there. We're marketed about alcohol a lot of times. We're also marketed on and sold different things on what to do with your money. This is kind of what works and what doesn't. And the first and foremost, it all starts with mindset.
Mindset. Well, I'm so honored that we were a part of your journey, and that we played some small role in leading you to this.
It wasn't a small role; it was a very big role. And
I was being modest.
I've acknowledged you guys in the book, and I actually implemented a lot of the things that I learned from the course into my own practice and into the online course. And we do offer a modified 90-day challenge that includes trying to give up the booze for 90 days.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. And again, it comes from that confidence, that true confidence. I could not have written this book. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it. And I have to say, I'm very confident and very happy with it. It's getting good reviews. And again, I think it's just one of those things. It's going to be the first book. It's my first book, but it's not my last. And it will continue to grow. And a lot of that does have to help, the help I experienced and the opening my eyes that I've got through the 90-day program.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. I love that you've emphasized that this program that we do here is not just about putting down the drinking. It's a mindset, and it is applicable to all areas of life. And you have clearly internalized that. And now you're doing your part to pay it forward and help others.
100%. And those listening to this or watching this, it's the first time. That's the most difficult time. The first wedding, the first socializing, the first time a friend comes over. But once that first time is done, you're done. And it all becomes easy. And it actually becomes much easier. I actually enjoy going out to networking events and socializing now. I have a carbonated water in my hand, but I have to mentally prepare a little bit before I go out, which is great. I think people get the best version of me when I'm at these events versus just relying on having a bottle in my hand.
Just showing up. I love it. Well, thank you, Steve. For our listeners, just a reminder, if you would like to have that conversation that Steve had with us, book a call, 15 minutes. It's free. We're just chatting. Let's see if we can work together. If not, there's lots of paths. There's lots of other resources that we can share with you. But listening to this podcast might be the sign that you need to take that big step. Thank you, Steve. I can't wait to read your book. Thanks for sharing your story. It will resonate with others.
Thank you very much, Victoria. And one of the things, just leaving off, is it's been almost a year of alcohol-free lifestyle, and those cringes come around, or you sometimes you feel like you want a beer, but then I realize it's more often I'm just thirsty. But if there is a strong desire, I usually come back to the two things that Coach Sarah taught, and one was, remember that day where you said enough was enough. And then the second is that after the 90-day program was done, how proud and happy I was to do that with my peers. And that just makes it easy.
Great takeaways. Great last words. Love it.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you, Steve. All right, everyone. Until next time, thanks for joining. Take good care and have an awesome day.